It should be filled, the saddest epidemic in medicine. That was the headline of an article in Time magazine back in 1984. But it wasn't about a viral outbreak, it was about infertility. The article mentioned that infertility rates had tripled, and over 1 million American couples were affected each year. It was around this time that people began to realize something important. Infertility doesn't only affect women. In about 40% of the cases, the issue lies with the man. Yes, men. It may sound simple, but what could go wrong with sperm? It's just a tadpole-shaped cell with a head and a tail. The job is to swim as fast as possible at 45 kilometers per hour, reach the egg, and boom, done. That's how sperm was viewed decades ago. If it looked like a tadpole under a microscope, it was considered fine. But that basic approach didn't help improve male fertility. In 1986, a scientist named Thynis Kruger changed the game. He revealed that just looking like a tadpole wasn't enough. Sperm could have all kinds of structural issues. Heads that are too big, too small, or oddly shaped. Some even had 2 heads. Tails could be tangled, too short, or bent. And most importantly, the sperm head might lack the special protein needed to break into the egg. While some of these abnormalities may look funny in pictures, they can lead to serious reproductive problems. Sure, conception might still be possible, but understanding how our bodies work gives us the power to prevent risks and improve outcomes. Just think, we don't even consider what's happening when we go to the bathroom and release millions of sperm in just 1 milliliter of semen. Now let's get into how all this works. We're about to talk about something that gets joked about all the time, but rarely explained properly. That is how sperm is actually made and how this incredible process works inside the male body. It all starts in a place most men casually refer to as their eggs, but scientifically, we call them the testes. These small oval-shaped glands are actually the body's sperm factories. And like any well-functioning factory, they need the right working conditions to do their job, which in this case is to continuously produce healthy, mobile sperm cells. Now here's something fascinating. The reason testes are located outside the main body cavity, hanging in the scrotum, is not for aesthetics or inconvenience, but for biology. Sperm production, also known as spermatogenesis, requires a temperature that's slightly lower than the body's internal temperature. While the core of our body stays around 37 degrees Celsius, sperm factories operate best at around 34 to 35 degrees Celsius. That's why they're placed in a little pouch of skin outside the body, to keep things cool enough for sperm development. And no, this isn't some weird evolutionary accident, it's a smart move by nature. If the testes stayed inside the abdomen where it's warmer, sperm wouldn't develop properly. That's actually what happens in a condition called cryptorchidism, where one or both testes fail to descend into the scrotum and remain in the abdominal cavity. It sounds harmless, but it can be quite serious. Cryptorchidism increases the risk of testicular cancer and often results in lower sperm quality because of prolonged exposure to high temperature. That's why pediatricians or pediatric urologists usually check for this in infants. Catching it early can make a big difference in future fertility. Now, because the testes are located outside the body in the scrotum, essentially hanging with very little protection, they're more vulnerable to external trauma. A sudden hit or injury to the testicles, whether during sports, an accident, or even rough physical activity can lead to significant pain and swelling. But beyond the discomfort, it can sometimes cause serious damage. If the injury is severe, it may lead to a condition called testicular torsion, where the spermatic cord twists and cuts off blood supply to the testicle. This is a medical emergency. If not treated within 6 hours, it can lead to permanent loss of the testicle. Even if torsion doesn't occur, blunt trauma can result in internal bleeding, hematomas, blood pooling inside the scrotum, or rupture of the testicle. These conditions can disrupt sperm production or damage the delicate seminiferous tubules, the structures inside the testes where sperm is actually created. Over time, untreated trauma can lead to testicular atrophy, which means the testicle shrinks and loses function. Or it might trigger an autoimmune response where the body starts attacking its own sperm, mistaking them as foreign invaders. So if someone experiences sharp pain, swelling, or bruising after an injury, it's essential to seek medical attention immediately. An ultrasound can help determine if there's internal damage, and early intervention can often save fertility and prevent long-term issues. Now, inside these testes is where the magic starts. The process begins with some very basic reproductive cells called spermatogonia. These are the earliest form of sperm cells. You can think of them as the great-great-grandfathers of sperm. They contain the full set of 46 chromosomes. That's the total number of chromosomes in a human cell. These spermatogonia undergo a process of cell division, first duplicating themselves and then splitting in half through a special kind of cell division called meiosis. Meiosis is different from regular cell division because it reduces the chromosome count by half, creating cells that have only 23 chromosomes each, just one set instead of two. This is necessary because when a sperm meets an egg, which also has 23 chromosomes, the resulting fertilized egg has the full set of 46 again. At this stage, the cells are called spermatocytes, and they eventually mature into spermatids, nearly finished sperm cells. From one original spermatogonium, 4 spermatids are formed, 2 carrying an X chromosome and 2 carrying a Y chromosome. That's where the whole gender determination thing comes in. If an X-bearing sperm fertilizes the egg, the result is a girl, double X. If a Y-bearing sperm wins the race, it's a boy, XY. So, yes, technically speaking, it's the man who determines the sex of the baby. Since there are an equal number of X-bearing and Y-bearing sperms swimming toward the egg, the chances of having a boy or a girl are pretty much 50-50. In the end, it all depends on which little swimmer wins the race and reaches the egg first. But sperm aren't quite ready yet. Even though they now have tails and look like the classic sperm shape we see in diagrams, they still can't swim properly. That ability comes a bit later, in a tightly coiled tube on the back of the testes called the epididymis. This is basically a finishing school for sperm. They spend several days here maturing, learning how to move, and developing strong plasma membranes. That membrane is important because it acts like a protective armor, especially once sperm are inside the female reproductive tract, which is not exactly a friendly environment. For example, the vagina is naturally acidic, which helps prevent infections, but it's not ideal for sperm survival. So, sperm need to be equipped to handle that. Once matured, sperm are stored in the tail of the epididymis until ejaculation. During ejaculation, they travel through the vas deferens, a muscular tube, and eventually mix with fluids from other glands that boost their chances of survival and fertilization. Meanwhile, the seminal vesicles add a thick fluid rich in fructose, basically sugar, which gives the sperm energy to swim. This mixture of sperm and fluid is what we call semen. The prostate gland, for instance, contributes a fluid that helps neutralize the acidic environment of the vagina by raising the pH. But here's something really incredible. This fluid doesn't just support the sperm, it also helps trigger gentle muscle contractions inside the female reproductive tract, guiding sperm toward the egg. Only a sperm with the right matching proteins on its surface can fuse with the egg. The outer layer of the egg, called the zona pellucida, has special receptor molecules, like tiny locks, and only sperm with the right key proteins can unlock them. If the key and lock fit perfectly, the sperm is allowed to enter. If not, the sperm is simply blocked. This ensures that only a healthy, compatible sperm succeeds in fertilizing the egg. The process is highly synchronized and beautifully complex, and yet, despite all this precision, so many things can go wrong along the way. That's why scientists and embryologists study each step closely to improve fertility outcomes. Now, let's break the myth of all sperm are good sperm. That's simply not true. In fact, only a small percentage of sperm in any sample are actually considered normal. According to the World Health Organization, a man's sperm should meet very specific criteria to be classified as healthy. Dr. Kruger, a reproductive specialist, developed a set of strict guidelines to evaluate sperm morphology. That's the size, shape, and structure of a sperm. For a sperm to be considered normal, its head should be oval-shaped and well-proportioned. The neck must be aligned straight, and the tail needs to be long and uniform to allow effective swimming. The head also contains an important structure called the acrosome, a little cap filled with enzymes that help the sperm break through the egg's outer shell during fertilization. If any of these features are off, that sperm doesn't make the cut. Here's the kicker. Earlier, if 14% of sperm in a sample met these ideal standards, it was considered a good sign. But now, the benchmark is just 4%. Yes, you heard that right. If just 4 out of every 100 sperm are morphologically normal, it's still considered within the fertile range. That's how tough the selection process is. But sperm quality isn't static. It fluctuates based on many factors, from lifestyle to illness to stress. That's why doctors recommend a spermogram, also known as semen analysis, when assessing male fertility. This test checks everything: sperm count, motility, how well they swim, morphology, how they look, and volume. But here's something important most men don't know. Before giving a sample for analysis, doctors recommend a short period of abstinence. That means no ejaculation through sex or masturbation for about 3 to 5 days. It's a very specific window. If you ejaculate too soon, the sperm count might be lower. But if you wait too long, sperm can start to degrade. They may lose motility or clump together. So this 3 to 5 day gap gives the most accurate reflection of your fertility status. It's also helpful when trying to conceive. Unlike women, who are born with all the eggs they'll ever have, men produce new sperm throughout their lives, a continuous assembly line. But just because sperm are always being made doesn't mean quality stays the same. Timing, health, and even external factors like heat can have an impact. Speaking of heat, let's revisit that sauna. Hot tubs, tight underwear, and even sitting with a laptop on your lap for hours can raise scrotal temperature and temporarily affect sperm production. Extreme workouts, steroid use, smoking, alcohol, and certain medications also mess with your sperm health. Even something as simple as a fever or a flu can lower sperm quality for several weeks. That's how sensitive the system is. And one more thing, when you do go for a sperm test, make sure to ask for a Kruger strict morphology test. Many labs don't include it by default. Also, it's best if the sperm count is done manually by an experienced technician rather than by automated software, which, while improving, still lacks the precision of a trained human eye. If your numbers aren't great, don't panic. A single test doesn't define you. Many men conceive naturally without ever knowing their sperm stats. And if problems do show up, there are often solutions. From simple lifestyle changes to medical treatments and assisted reproductive techniques like ICSI, intracytoplasmic sperm injection, which can help even when sperm count or motility is low. Growing up, most of us mainly heard about women's prenatal care, fertility, and biological clocks. But it's time men start paying attention too. So it's high time men took charge of their reproductive health, got informed, and, if needed, got tested. So send this video to your friends. Let's spread the word about the miracles happening below our belts. If you learned something new today, we'd really appreciate it if you liked, shared, and subscribed. It might seem like a small thing, but honestly, your support means everything to us. It's what keeps us going, keeps us researching, and keeps us writing, and yep, keeps us running on way too much coffee.